Alrighty, folks, welcome along to another episode of the Made to Pray podcast. You're joining us on episode number 74, and we're just going to follow up the conversation that we had in the previous episode that quite a lot of you got involved with. And just want to say thank you to everybody who watched that. Nearly 3,000 people tuned in for the episode that explored the idea of an approved bonds register with the County Grant Lodge of Belfast. So as I say, going to follow up on that today. And I did hope to have a few other people involved in this conversation. That hasn't worked out for numerous reasons. But I'm absolutely delighted today to be joined by someone who is no stranger to the podcast, having been on two previous episodes. It's Derek Moore, who is, you'll know, is a member of the William King Memorial Flute Band and also an integral part of the Northwest Cultural Partnership up in Londonderry. So just going to bring Derek in now and we'll get stuck into today's episode. All right, Derek, welcome along. Great to have you back on the podcast, mate. It's been a wee while since you made an appearance here.
Yeah, I've been a while, Glenn. We've been fairly busy building up over the last it's about a year and a half since I spoke with you the last time.
Yeah, that's right. I think we had with Brian, James, and yourself
Yeah.
down talking a wee bit about the envisioning the future conferences and stuff that you've had, and obviously work's progressed quite a lot since then. And you're mentioning there about being busy, and I know that this week has been ridiculously busy for you because a wee bit of a dream, I suppose, has come true for you guys. You've opened up a brand new building, haven't you?
Yeah, I suppose it's 6 or 7 months late, maybe a wee bit more. So there's been a bit of a huge delay, but we've opened up our new Newgate Arts Centre in the Fountain area in Londonderry, and it's a pretty spectacular building. Not huge, but it's better than nothing, and it's a lot better. I suppose a lot better for us than I've ever had before. So it's a centre that we're really looking forward to getting into multiple use.
Right, I know because you had mentioned a wee bit about that whenever we had talked last. This was probably said there was a long-term plan for this. Talk to us a wee bit about the rationale behind this building, what it is that you're actually hoping that it'll do, because it's linked into this idea of creating these regional cultural hubs and so on. So, before we get into the topic today, let's give a wee bit of plug to that work because I think what you are doing is amazing. I mean, having had a wee quick look around the building before it was finished off and stuff, and some of the plans that you have for it, I think it's an exciting venture.
Yeah, well, what it does first, it gives us a chance to, they bring a lot of groups here for things that I think that the Protestant community, loyalist community, and whatever, they do some things that we never really do. Things that probably should have taken place over a long period of time. It gives an opportunity to have space to bring the community in. They talk around the things that have been awkward for us at this moment in time around the national debate and the community development and stuff like that there, and give people a chance to speak. So before now we didn't have the space where we could do that, where we could create presentations and get people's views and things. So that's sort of one side of it that we're looking at. The other side, obviously, for ourselves is for myself and a band and stuff like that there, it's performance space. It's private performance space that we've total control over. Therefore, we're not restricted by councils or other venues that we're working with. So we have total control over how we use that, and what kind of events we run on it, and we can run events from the top brass, Ballyloan, Ballygowan concert bands, right down to the Blood and Thunder stuff that that a lot of people like too, and other things in between. Then, apart from that, part of our Northwest Cultural Partnership stuff is around dance, around drama. We have the space now to create our own stuff there, and create our own dance stuff and create our own drama stuff as well. So it's a production space that we can use to take stuff out. And you mentioned there about the hub idea we have through Envision the Future. Not every hub, probably needs to be like this. Or there are loads of buildings around Northern Ireland that the hub idea is about bringing collections of like-minded people forward thinking, who want the country to work, who want the country to move forward, and really promoting what we have and promoting what we do to the world. We're being portrayed at times as backward thinking and stuff, and we have a lot of issues and all that there. But really, we have a lot of forward thinkers. We have massive cultural output, and we can really expose that through this type of collaboration. We hope that permeates out to all parts of the province, either in the 6 counties or the 11 super council areas. We're just really looking to get groups to come together, to work together, because we are much stronger working together, and it's much easier to have influence and access funding and to drive our cultural experiences forward through this type of stuff. We found that anyway over the last 8 or 9 years.
Brilliant. And what kind of things have you got coming up? Because I know you have big plans for things, but what kind of things can people look forward to taking place in the building without maybe giving too much away? I'm sure you've got some stuff that you're just working on.
Yeah, well, we're just on here the couple of days. Obviously, there's a massive Halloween festival here in the city coming up. As part of that, we have a huge 15, 20-foot dragon down the stairs, which will be coming out in the evening time for smoke mirrors, Highland dancers, players and stuff into the middle of the street. For the children and for the community. It's a whole all singing, all dancing thing, and it's going to be a big part of the Halloween stuff. What we have done the past few years in the Fountain area, we've been fairly isolated on the west bank of the Foyle, and we've had not a lot of people know a lot about the Fountain. So the last few years at Halloween, we have created a series of events, and in the last year we had 30,000 people in the area, over the Halloween festival, which is kind of massive for us. People who've never been in the area, people from the Bogside and Craigan and stuff like that, who are coming to sort of see what the Fountain's about. It's very small Protestant areas, most people would know. But that's the kind of exposure that we're looking there on this weekend. Then coming up, then we have the opportunity, for small cafe type events. Recently we featured the Festival of Flutes, some of the top flute players in the country and stuff. We're looking at that type of thing. We're looking to expose the culture to maybe in smaller groups, maybe in bigger groups. But we now have our own facility where we have total control over what we do and how we manage it, and I think that's the exciting thing for us.
Brilliant. No, it definitely does sound exciting. I'm really looking forward to getting up to a few events in the place, and good to see that you finally got that rolling door thing sorted out, and get yourselves up and running. I know that causes a wee bit of pain getting that sorted out.
Yeah.
Yeah, no worries. Well, listen, Derek, one of the reasons I wanted to have a chat with you today, as I was saying in my introduction, I had hoped that there would be a couple of people involved in this conversation, just for whatever reasons. Some people just don't want to talk about this stuff, and but I thought it'd be great for us to kind of delve into the content, a wee bit of the last video that I did around the County Grand Lodge of Belfast, potential proposal, well, not potential proposal, their action in regards to creating an approved bonds register. And I know we've had some chats about this, but well, whenever you kind of either saw the video or read that document, what were some of your thoughts in regards to that?
Well, I think the first and foremost thought then was, I think it was I think it's fantastic that the County Grand Lodge actually think they look at the image of the parade, and at the way parading is, because it's a thing that we all have suffered from. We have allowed a lot of things to be used against us in the past. So I think it's good that they're actually looking at the image and how the parade, how they feel the parade should be run. Where I think they fell down, or where they fall down, is that parading is all our responsibility. So everyone who's on parade is responsible for it. Therefore, any changes, I feel, should be a collaborative approach. We should be looking at what the bands need, what the lodges and what the county think that they need, and basically not even just taking it away from that Belfast County sort of thing. what the Orange Order in general need to be looking at, what the Apprentice Boys need to be looking at, and around, and the Black and stuff. We need those parades to be top quality, top notch, as least disruptive as possible, and a real celebration of our culture, not something that that's causing any sort of thing. And I sort of feel that with the Orange Order, and I know they're fairly set in their ways and stuff like that there.
Yeah.
But we're in the 21st century now, yet we're still using 19th or 20th century parade routes, parade organizational stuff. We haven't evolved the parades to match the society that we now live in. Sometimes for me they're too long, too laborious, too much stress. So I think the big thing for me is it's a collaborative approach. We all need it, not an imposition, which I felt slightly reading the document that it was. I think I've been involved in those conversations before, and basically a document that I came across in 1998, written by the Apprentice Boys, an internal memo for them, was that they felt that they needed to control the bands fraternity. Mm-hmm. That they needed total control, that they were the ones who would dictate the terms, and I sort of, working on that premise, I look at my own band. We march one time a year with the Orange Order, which is the 12th of July. We march numerous parades and stuff, issue-wise, no problem. And I'm sure a lot of bands are exactly the same. And for an organisation who employs you once, they want total control over everything you do. I think it's slightly missing the point,
Yeah, no, I agree with you, because whenever you read the document, it's very much a top-down approach. It's very much like, as you said, it's dictating the terms. This is what we want from you, or what we expect from you. But yet there's no kind of collaborative approach to say, well, listen, how do we work on this together, in terms of responsibility. For me, my reading of it was that it seemed to throw all the responsibility for anything that's deemed not acceptable on a parade seemed to land on the band's heads and the band's shoulders, and that really didn't sit well with me. And I from the responses that I got from members within the band community, it seemed to be that people were picking that up as well.
I think, Glenn, and I have been involved in negotiations with the Apprentice Boys and stuff as well on parade issues. I think and there was a sort of similar issue at the start with them, where any misdemeanor within a band caused the whole band to be in bother. Mm-hmm. But any misdemeanor within a lodge or a club was an individual thing for an individual, and for me that always didn't sit well. Bands are very aware of and deal with issues within their own ranks, from time to time when anything does occur. And I sort of always feel that this blanket approach of if one person in a band does something, then the whole band's responsible. The other big problem for me with the whole thing was, and it was the same when we worked on the Maiden City Accord stuff with the Apprentice Boys, was that you're dealing with individuals. So if there's individual issues between people in bands and lodges, mm-hmm. People in the lodge can create could create an issue, and some things can become personal. It can be anything. It may be nothing to do with it. So that's why I feel that a collaborative approach, basically seeing what everybody needs on the parade. Mm-hmm. I think maybe we'll discuss some of the stuff around, our issues around the Maiden City Accord and some of the strange things that came out of those discussions. And I think that the institutions need to realise that, as I say, parading is a joint responsibility for all of us, and that's not only ourselves who are parading. That's a joint responsibility with with the business communities and cities that we're walking through and places we're walking through. The PSNI, there's a lot of elements that that was the kind of discussions that we felt came to the fore during the collaborative meetings we held on the Maiden City Accord stuff.
Yeah, no, because one of the things I know, I usually don't do the negative stuff, and I think, I don't know how maybe negative that the last video came across, but it's not generally my thing. But I was really kind of just taken aback, just at the nature even of the language that was being used in the document. Very, very, arcane, the type of language and stuff. But what I really felt was, after having read the thing, but maybe I don't know how many times I've read it, but I actually don't think they're saying what they really wanted to say. I think they've kind of put it into this legal speak, but they haven't really addressed the issues that they wanted to address. I really think that they've covered it up in this type of legalistic language in some senses. I don't know whether that's to try and keep themselves right in some shape or form. But for me, it was like, kind of go, just deal with the real issue. Come out and say what the real issues are, and then let's have a conversation from there.
Yeah. And it's interesting that, because in the discussions we had, over the main city court, it was mainly instigated at the start by the apprentice boys, but the Orange Order were involved in that in the city, the Black Preceptory were involved in that, the parade marshals were involved in that, the bands were involved in that. And a lot of our time was spent on, we rewrote the document about 10 times, and we went, our initial approach to it was a brainstorming session where we got everybody together in one room, and we had 4 boards in the corners, and 4 scribes, and we were saying to people, just say what you feel is wrong with our parade and stuff at the minute, and we were just noted down notes. We categorized those into different headings, around behaviour, around responsibilities, around health and safety and stuff like that there. But one thing that we did do was we were ultra careful in the wording that we used to make sure that it wasn't offensive. And it did actually say, and each group, had individual responsibilities, we had collective responsibilities, and then, we had, but the main overarching responsibility is for the organising parade, which is one of the points that they did articulate, that the masters of the lodge, signing the 11/1 forms were actually responsible. So therefore, we all kind of had to make sure that there was no issue around that there. But I think on language, you do need to spell it out. But I think one of the big problems is, before you spell out what you want to say, you need to hear what the individual groups within the parade actually feel and need from the day. Because some of the stuff, and I read that, and one of the places that we had the biggest issue around was sanctions, about parading. But I think we in the Maiden City Accord, there is no mention of of sanctions of anything, because the simple thing was, I think, if we brought out the meeting, especially from the bands, we turned around and said, "Hey guys, you employ us. If you're not happy with our performance, then you don't have to employ us, but you don't have to cause friction by turning around and saying they're banned and banning bands." It's like, we use the analogy: if you hire a plumber to do your work in the house and they don't do a good job, you don't hire them again. So that's the kind of thing, because we felt that the bands were, by and large, far more disciplined than the rest of the parade. Especially I read some of the stuff and that around distances and behind cars and vans and buses and stuff, and you must be 4 meters or whatever it is. When we discussed that there around parade here, especially on the 12th of August parade and the relief parade, we were saying things like, we march behind a minibus. That minibus stops, 8 or 10 apprentice boys get off, and 8 or 10 more get on. Then the minibus travels from 2 miles an hour to 12 miles an hour to catch up a parade. The band's left 200 yards down the street. You can't make up 200 yards in a parade. That issue needs discussed in all parades around vehicles, and we do need to tighten the parades. I'm totally in favour of that there. Because that's part of the spectacle, and that's part of the product we're putting out there. but it needs a collaborative approach. It can't be. It can't be. What people who aren't in the band don't understand about the band is, you can't. You just can't make up distance. Probably the same thing too around around other things around how the bands look, how they dress, and the playing and all that there. It's always a great thing. A great laugh to me, when the rain's pissing down, the people in the Orange Order, the Apprentice Boys, have coats on and hats on and umbrellas up, and the band's marching in the pouring rain and they have to play. When the sun's shining, they have their coats off and they're dancing, waving to everybody in the street, and these things are not reflected in that there around the quorum and the parade. So again, that's a collaborative approach that needs to be taken.
Yeah, no, I definitely think so. And again, I think that, I know that whenever I'd spoken to a few representatives from the Orangers, said, oh, you need to get the spirit behind it now. Like, well, it's a wee bit hard to get to the spirit behind it when it's so hard lined. Whenever it just seems so hard edged, it's really hard to get to the spirit. That's why I was saying, well, why don't you just come out and say what it is that you really wanted to say, which was, what? There's a problem with spacing and parades. We need to work together in order to make sure that the spacing is appropriate. Because for me, the idea of, the saying that it's a band captain's responsibility to ensure that the distance between the last row of the band and the lodge is no more than whatever, I think it was 13 feet or something like that there. And then the same for any vehicles or anything in front of them. I was like, well, what if your band captain walks in the front row? That them from really getting Somali. If your band captain walks in the front row of the band, the last row of the band could be that at that 13 foot mark. Do you know what I mean? And then he has to go and check and see whether somebody else is 13 feet behind that. I just was like, have you really thought about what it is that you have written down here?
Look, I think those I think those things are the problem is there, it's all about perception. I think was mentioned on your last podcast. We play in a band, so we know the issues. If you have somebody with 20 drummers marching behind you, you sort of need them a wee bit away from you.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it destroys the whole parade for the people who paid you to play for them on the day, and it spoils it for the people on the street. But I'm not advocating 50 and 100-yard gaps and stuff like that. I don't feel the need that. One of the big issues here, especially in the parade coming up now, and the shutting of the gates is, we feel that the Apprentice Boys don't need to bring so many bands to it. What they need to do is bring the branch clubs and march the parent club bands with 500 and 600 people behind each band.
Yeah.
Which therefore the bands can be nearly on top of the clubs. So a lot of the issues around our small lodges and stuff. So we're lucky here in the city. Our Apprentice Boys parent club has 120 members. Nobody gets that close to us, even if they were marching in the back row of the Apprentice Boys.
Sure.
So, but I do understand, and clubs with 420, up to 20 people, you sort of get that, you sort of get that thing. But I think, as I say, the main thing is look, is common sense. We want the parades to be tighter, and I think one of the things that we did on the Accord stuff is that. Between the clubs and ourselves, we appointed one person within the club and one person within the band who would be the liaison with the main marshals. Mm-hmm. So if the marshal says you need to move up, they would speak to the club. The one person in the club would come and speak to the band, and we would react accordingly. That was the plan of that there. Sure. So because the big issue, especially being in a band, and I've been in Belfast, especially at the Tertiary and Junior period, the boys get out there and they become marshals for a day, and they think they're back in the penal colonies. Get up here, and there's nothing bands hate as much as been their rhythm and their thing being disrupted and stuff. So again, I think that approach of someone in the club or lodge and someone in the band being the coordinating voices. And being part of the parade, I think, is a big thing. But again, that needs a collaborative approach. That can't be driven by one group telling the other groups what to do, because it puts the marshals in an invidious position. and it puts the whole parade in various positions. You know, it looks bad if marshals are shouting and roaring on the streets. You know, we need a collective look at the way we parade.
Yeah, no, I think you're
Basically,
right.
that is the thing. All of us need a collective look of how we're portrayed and how we are promoting that parade.
Yeah, and I think you're right. Yeah.
And again, back to the thing about it is, most of the parades that we're involved in with the Apprentice Boys and the Orange and the Black and stuff are huge commemorative events and need a certain decorum about them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a decorum that is sometimes lost, sometimes by the band, sometimes by the marchers and the club. So I think there's an educational thing that we have let slip, and there's a remembrance thing too that we have let slip badly. You know, I'm 64 years of age now and still marching in the band. I don't want to be behaving like I did when I was 16, and I don't want the parade to be behaving like when I was 16, because we're at the height of the troubles and stuff then. We're not there now. Now's the time for us to expose our culture to the world.
Yeah, no, I think, you know, right across the board, I would say you're probably, you know, everyone has that same opinion. We want these parades to be the absolute best that they can be in regards to, one, discipline and behavior on thing, but also that cultural aspect in terms of what is this parade actually about? What are we commemorating? And is our behavior and our decorum, you know, showing that in a positive light, you know, so that, you know, you can't know there can be no slate on that. You know, I think of even the likes of 1st of July parade here, which is one of my favorite parades in Belfast, you know, in terms of the Somme commemoration side of things. You know, there's some issues there, and it's like any parade, you will get issues, but I think that we are missing a trick in regards to the relationship that exists between the actual event and the people who were going to be there in regards to their knowledge of what this is. You know, because for some people, they don't have that connection with the historical aspect of some of the parades, you know, and that's partly maybe down to the fact that, you know, 90% of parades that band do have got no real historical connection to anything. You know, the local band parade, the local band competition, you know, there's something kind of different there, but I think there really does need to be a re-emphasis on this historical aspect on what it is that we're doing. Because one of the things that I've been really pondering over the last few while is this idea that we get thrown at us that, yeah, culture, what culture? You know, and I think that, you know, that we have a responsibility to, you know, explain why it is culture, in terms of, you know, almost like an apologetics type of thing, in terms of, well, this is, you know, some of the things that get leveled at us come from sort of myth and misunderstanding and, you know, a misperception of what's going on from that, and that can come from political ideologies, etc. But I think that we need to take responsibility for how we present ourselves as well.
Yeah, look, and you know, I think we should all be well aware that we need to be self-critical. You know, we need to start with our own performance and our own stuff before we go out there. And you know, I mentioned earlier about the writing of the stuff in the Main City Accord. On the Main City Accord, the first we broke it down into 6 headings, but the first heading that we put it at the top of the discussion was behaviour.
Mm-hmm.
But as we spoke through the 5 months that created the document, behaviour disappeared down to number 5.
Right.
You know, where we realised that the behaviour actually was on the whole quite good. There was isolated incidents at times, but behavioural wise, the behaviour was quite good. There was other things that needed really looking at, and I think maybe top of our list, and just off the top of my head now, is communication. Communication was the main thing. You know, I think especially with the Orange Order and ourselves here on the 12th of July, the Orange Order engaged the band for a very few £100, maybe 30, 35 working men for a full day for 250 quid or something. And that full day usually is between 10 and 12 hours, you know. Mm-hmm. So there has to be a mutual respect for that, what we are doing for the lodges and what the overall thing in the parade was. So the thing about communication, you know, for us was the day we went to Terraston Junior Parade, we had to wait for 4 hours before we got marching. You know, it was horrendous, the organisational thing. So we felt that communication actually it lowers the temperature on the parade. if you know when you're going, and everybody, it's all clear and stuff like that, it makes it far more simpler. It cuts down, as I said earlier, around the 19th, 20th century rules. We need to shorten the parades. I know there's a whole issue, and this might be something that the county's looking at around the people who watch the parades. Spending a full day on the streets drinking and stuff like that. There, maybe we do need to shorten the parades. Maybe we need to look at no return. Maybe we need to look at a simple, like Scotland, like a starting point and a finish point, and so that cuts down all the hanging about for 3 or 4 hours, all the all the other things, and then the people on the streets who've spent the whole day maybe in the sun drinking, and then things don't look great on the way back and stuff. So look, there's tons of stuff, but we need to be looking at that collectively.
Yeah.
We need to be creating a new product here. I know people say about tradition and traditional roots and all, but I march here in Londonderry, and when I marched at the start with my father and the Apprentice Boys, we paraded through the Bogside and up through William Street and all. That's not a traditional route we use anymore. Yet we still have the tradition of the shutting of the gates and the relief of the city. So I mean, I can't. And then the other thing, I suppose, on the document that you presented the last time was about bands passing one another. And I think you were dead right. We need to look at routes that don't pass, because that is also much better for spectators. It's a clear route. I think we need to shorten the routes because we need to condense the people. Here on the 12th of August, we march in huge swathes where there's not many people. But if we condense that parade slightly more, we would have the city centre filled and the parade route filled with 10 deep on the streets. And would that not be a much better spectacle than stretching it out another mile and a half? They go up around where I live on Irish Street and stuff.
Sure.
I just sort of feel that we're missing a trick, and we're not modernising with a modern world, and we're leaving ourselves open to criticism because of it.
No, and I even think when you think of the August parade up in Londonderry, even the spaces where bands do pass each other, it's quite a wide, carriageway that people are kind of walking past, in terms of, even think of the bridge. I mean, the bridge is probably as close as it gets in terms of, bands walking past each other. But when you come up towards the estate and stuff, when the bands are, there's a massive gap in between the bands walking past, which doesn't have the same type of effect as what you have when you're in closer proximity. And one of I was talking with someone about this year, and unfortunately it was an Apprentice Boys parade. Easter Monday this year was the one we were at, was ridiculous, because it was in Cookstown, I think, was it? And we were it was just through the main street, and all it was a blowout the whole way, up the one part of the parade, and then going back. It turned back on itself, and it was just constant. You couldn't have made anything out there at all. I thought it was a horrendous route. So
well, funny you should mention that, Claire, because this is the first Easter Monday we've marched in 25 years, and we were in Cookstown. And the one point that struck me was that we came out of a small estate and we turned left and marched about 300 yards down the road, then done a U-turn on the road and marched back.
Yeah.
And I thought, what on earth is that? And then there was bands coming up and actually taking a right turn right through the middle of us nearly,
Yeah.
Look, those things need looked at, because it makes the parade easier, Marshall. It creates less disruption if we look at new routes, and I think it shows progression, and it takes away some of the narrative from people who would criticise. If you're more proactive in your approach, and people are simply complaining. A lot of complaints are, we don't want people marching past this area, even from people who don't even live in that area. But the problem with all that is, it's actually probably a more sectarian view in that, where if you take a measured approach and you create the parade that you want, and then you say, well, what is your issue? If your issue is something you don't want us, then that's not acceptable in our society. If you have a practical issue, I mean, as I say, keep going back to the accord stuff, but we dealt with stuff in the accord around cenotaphs and around places of worship.
Yeah.
And I look at the Parades Commission, and bands are banned from playing outside chapels, but they're not banned from playing outside churches. It is a really ridiculous thing. The thing we looked at there was contact again, was communication. If the parade organisers communicate with the churches and chapels or whatever it is, have you a service on? Is anything? Here's an emergency number. If someone dies and is laid out, and it's going to be a funeral.
Yeah.
Practical things that you can. Someone will ring you up and say there's a body's laid out in the chapel or the church today. Could you tell the bands not to play them past it and stuff? That's fair enough. But this blanket stuff is is kind of ridiculous, because for me, the religion part of churches is when the people's there, not the building.
Yeah.
The building will always be there. We walk past them every day with no issue. Why should we allow it then to become a contentious issue while we're on parade and stuff? So it's about mutual respect on all sides.
Yeah, and I think it comes down to that idea of needs, Derek. I mean, I think when we talk about this idea that whenever there's issues and whenever there's conflict, and behavior comes as a result of that, what we're really responding to is there are needs that are represented here. There are needs from the bonds, there are needs from the community, there are needs from the orders, etc., and they need to be addressed. Or else, if we don't clearly, and as you say, if we don't clearly communicate what those actual needs are, then we can leave things open to interpretation. But yet, if we take this completely punitive approach to it, we're not actually dealing with at the root cause, which is what is the quality of the relationships that exist between all of the interested parties. And I think for me that's a real key aspect. And if the relationships are not good, then whenever the idea of coming down hard on someone is almost seen as the first reaction. Well, we'll just come down hard on you and you'll learn, you'll not do this again. But it doesn't actually deal with the issue. It doesn't deal with the fact of what caused whatever happened to happen, and doesn't address. And all it does is it brushes it under the carpet, and then what we're left with is resentment. And I think that's where part of some of the negative responses to this document has come, is just how things have been dealt with previously has been very punitive, and there's resentment there right across the board. Resentment from the orders, in the sense that why aren't bonds just doing what we tell them, and bonds going, well, who the hell do you think you are? And there needs to be as you say, this coming together of let's heal the relationship, and say, well, listen, let's make this better. And instead of having to dish out these draconian punitive measures, because there's no win for anybody in that, Derek. I don't see there being a win for anybody.
No, there's no one. I think if we look at the good examples of cooperation, we built the Maiden City Accord on the back of the discussions that the Apprentice Boys had with the Bogside residents and the local, and the local businesses now, because we needed the parade, we needed the walls, we needed the city, and we needed it to work for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
I think unfortunately, maybe at times with the order individually, when you're speaking to members, even senior members, they see the need. We have that standoff at Drumcree for the last 500 years or whatever it is now, and stuff like that there. But the problem that has always been, in my view, has been either the lack of confidence or the will. They discuss these things with people face to face, because when people are put in a position where they have to give you an answer to your face about what the problem they have is, I think most times, especially around those resident type groups, the argument is not really there. But the easy out is the way we still seem to be continuing to do it. With the standoff over the protocol stuff and all that there. Good legitimate arguments, but controlling things like that from outside is so difficult. That's the same sort of thing with this band stuff and the Orange of Belfast. It needs to be collaboratively controlled, and we need to be all together in the room. So when something said to you and said, well, why do you need that? We don't feel that you need that there. We are this, that, and the other, and everything is so much easier. And then, once the decision is made, then everyone has a responsibility to stick with it. And
Yeah.
that is a simple version of it all. In any form of life, when you're when you're ordered to do something, it's not the same as being part of the collective team that makes the decision.
Yeah. What I say, I do a lot of work and obviously community-based work, and we use is about ask and don't tell. It's ask versus tell. And I think the old thing, the quote that's come a lot and talking to people about this, nothing about us without us is for us. And I think, but I don't know where that's come from and stuff, but I think the idea is definitely, that I think it sits well within this kind of context, that if there's something that's about all of us, but we're not all included in that conversation, then are we surprised that there is the type of reactions that are coming to this, and yeah, and the other thing that I had that come out of this kind of conversation with some people was, well, what if we don't get all these representatives from Bonds in the room, and and then someone says, oh, we were left out and whatever else, and I think, but that's still no reason not to have the conversation. I mean, having the conversation and inviting people to go along, if they can't get there, then for me, that's going, well, if you want to be part of the conversation, find some way of getting in on it, but that shouldn't be a stumbling block to the idea of having a conversation. Because I'm sure, and I'm sure you correct me if I'm wrong, but it may be not every bond that walked or walks in the London Dairy Parades were possibly consulted in terms of what came into the agreement of the Maiden City Accord, but I'm sure there were representatives from Bonds that were brought together to have a conversation with, let's take this forward. How did that work? Because that's something that was real. Oh, you'll never please everybody, and you won't please everybody. But as again, I still don't think that that's an excuse to not have the conversation.
No, and you're dead right. I mean, the conversation was the London Bands Room, which at that time simply represented 14 bands. But, it's 14 bands of huge experience. Bands there that have been on parade for 180 years and stuff like that. And look, as I say, the simple answer to your thing is your question is that I feel that a lot of bands should feel the way we do. It's about the decorum. It's about our own how we look. Why do we practice 52 weeks a year to be the best we can and then go out and act a twat? It's not what we do. We're telling this all the time, and we don't. I know we don't work 52 weeks a year to march something on the 12th of July or the 12th of August. Our base is much wider than that. There, so I sort of feel that the Maiden City Accord stuff is. Any band that would be against it would need to be putting up a really strong argument. So, well, you tell me how behaving well on the street, how looking good, how when we're dealing with the organisers, they make sure they have enough toilets, not pissing in the streets. They make sure that on a warm day, as I said before about orange men, short sleeves and all, bands are in uniforms. There's a health and safety aspect there. Is there water breaks? Is there breaks? Is there access for ambulances? They pick up fat bandsmen or old bandsmen like myself who have a heart attack in the middle of the parade. These are responsibilities that the collective thing discussed around the Maiden City Accord. And I know it's difficult for organisers who have never looked on these things. But really, especially with the Orange Order, you look at an aging group of people. It's not as young as it was, and they're more elderly and middle-aged people and overweight people who maybe do no exercise a year and go and march the 12th. There's a lot more responsibility on the organisations. But as I say about bands, anyone who would complain about things looking right, things being really organised, you having great communication, you would need to be putting up a great argument. You can go and march any day of the week in the streets if you want to be a twat, if you want to intimidate people. You can do that on your own. You don't need to pull the Orange Order and the Apprentice Boys and the commemorations that we're doing into that same category.
Yeah, no, I'm 100% with that. You know what I mean? I think because I know that when I was speaking about it on the last episode, I was a wee bit facetious at times, in terms of, well, listen, the reputation of your institution is your responsibility. to some degree, bonds do play a part, and I get that this is where this document is coming from in terms of what role do bonds play in terms of enhancing or maybe taking away from that credibility of the institution. I get that, but I still, my main sort of kind of sense of outrage was that it's not just us. This is everybody that needs to be involved in that. And I know that, having spoken to you and a number of people, and saying that, whenever we start pointing the finger, we've got to be recognize that there's fingers pointing back. And we looked at the return parade this year in the East Belfast, and some of the, I have to say, the decorum from lodge members was questionable, in regards to, there was quite evidently people who were seriously under the influence of alcohol and couldn't walk straight and whatever. And I'm not saying that there wasn't people in bonds maybe in a similar scenario, but I think, whenever we're outlining, these type of rules that saying that alcohol isn't to be consumed, whatever else, that should be applying to absolutely everybody. And that's why whenever I had read through the Maiden City Agreement, I think, the way that it outlines and in each section it outlines the responsibility for each grouping within those particular. So you mentioned about communication. There was how does this get communicated from the institution to the bonds to the marshals, etc., right through to the timing of parades, what's going on with the events, where are the suggested breaks, etc. But the other thing that you talked about there as well was the health and safety aspect. And there's a section in the Accord that deals specifically with health and safety as well, isn't there? So, but it puts the responsibility back onto the individual groupings, because I think that's one of the things that I like about the wording of that. There, you use the phrase, I think it's single identity groups, that make up all of the different factions that take part in the parade. But they have a responsibility in regards to health and safety for their members. So bonds have a responsibility for health and safety for their members there. The organizers have a responsibility for health and safety for their members, but because they are the organizers of the parade, there's a wider health and safety responsibility. And I get that some of the stuff that was in the county's document was dealing with that, but they just didn't say that was, explicitly that it was bonds' responsibility. It wasn't their responsibility to do anything about that, because the other thing that came out of this for me as well was this idea of, even just responsibility in regards to uniforms. You think about, you're saying there about getting rained on, some bonds are sporting like doeskin, those doeskin jackets and stuff. Those things don't really respond well to moisture whatsoever. Do you know what I mean? And then bonds are looking to have to either either replace those or deal with the fact that stuff can get damaged. Instruments in the rain, I even think, not that I'm their biggest fan, but accordions and pipes in the rain is a disaster. So there's loads of other things that come out of that in regards to health and safety. But I think the kicker for me was, the mace pole throwing stuff, in terms of, people having the bomb poles and all this kind of thing. And I know there's a section in that in terms of the Maiden City Accord that deals with that, which saying it's the bond's responsibility to have insurance for themselves. And it's,
yeah, look, and look, Glenn, that's a big thing that we have pushed through like advance forums and stuff. And I know for a lot of people, turn and say, "Oh, we're not getting insured," but I think it goes back to that, it goes back to that responsibility thing. I'm in the committee of the band. If even at our practice, when we're about and the boys are sitting the drum and on the floor and stuff like that, if some young person or some older person trips over that drum, falls on the floor, bangs their head on the table, and becomes really incapacitated in life, for all the goodwill in the world, somebody's looking for somebody to cover that. Cover that. And this insurance covers, the insurance we have covers, rehearsal. It covers, where we're practicing. It covers us on the street, and it's a few £100 a year. I always say to people, you would never drive your car without insurance. You insure your home. These things might never happen, and we all pray that nothing like that ever happens. But they do. I mean, the first sort of time that we got the insurance, one of our drummers walked onto a car at a parade on a narrow street. banged on the door, scraped the door. It's 1,000 quid's worth of damage to get it fixed. You
Yeah.
know, hey, you're really up against it. And as I say, around the Macepo stuff, and that's been an ongoing thing for a long time. But again, it's about the modernisation of society. If someone does get hurt in this way, and I got your stuff about the young boys with tennis balls and all that crack, and that sort of is really like a different issue. But there has been times, and now let's face it, there's been really skillful drum majors who could use those maces, and they could make it work, and that added greatly to the spectacle. But if something happens on parade, it really is a grey area, and that's something for each individual band to do. You don't see as many bands now with the leaders of the. I mean, we had a guy who used to be able to throw the mace, over Fergie Gate from one side to the other. Quite a feat. But more times than enough, it was going into the crowd than it was going into his hands. That sort of way. But I mean, that was then, and this is now. Our society now is all based around, what could we screw out of bands, or what, who could we blame for anything? And look, that is a grey area, and that is something probably needing a bit of work, with individual bands and with groups, that one is difficult for all of us.
I mean, I get it. I really do. And I think I said that I understand the health and safety thing. I really do. And I get it. And I know that a lot of the attacks that are being put towards bands is around this whole health and safety is definitely the way that we're being targeted. It's a major way that we're being targeted. Even from like the timing of parades, bands being out on the road at 11 o'clock at night and stuff, without all sorts of stuff, and that the traffic flow and all this kind of thing. I get that that's where the issues are coming and stuff, but I think that there needs to be but that brings it back to the idea of let's have a conversation about that, because I look at some of those guys who are skilled, who use the real heavy kind of, military based mace pull and stuff, very, very skilled. But that's not to say that, that accidents can't happen. I mean, saying regardless of how skilled you may be, that's something that accidents can't happen, and that we need to be realistic about, that what there is the potential maybe somebody could get hurt, and maybe because of someone's own ideology and background that they might not take any action on it, but we can't guarantee that that's the case. So where did you actually get your insurance from in terms of that, and how was that drawn up for you?
Well, it was drawn up. We were members of the Confederation of Ulster Bands. It's a bit more glamorous than it sounds, but it again was bands from different parts of the country, or people involved in that, and they spoke to insurance companies, and they created this insurance. I can't actually mean just the exact name now, but I do have it. But I mean, the insurance it insured your instruments as well.
Right.
Especially for groups maybe. Not ourselves, but apparently there are groups who keep their instruments in a hall, like lodge bands and stuff like that there. But it insured against sort of mass loss and things like that. It also gives you public liability insurance for being on the road and for running events, like running your own parade and all. So it covered that, covered the public liability and stuff. It sort of just gives. I mean, I don't think a lot of people realize, and it was kind of intimated in the document that you brought up, that the responsibility after signing 11/1 is with the worshipful master, but also that will also be with the lodge committee. And as I said earlier, in the day and age that we now live, if anybody's going to sue the band, they're suing the committee. And if the lawyers are suing the committee, they're suing the person in the committee with the most money. So you need to be covering your own band. It's okay saying we don't need insurance, but if you're the person whose house or whose livelihood is on the line because someone is badly hurt, then we do need to protect each other too. And that, so as I say, and the thing about the parades at 11 o'clock at night and all that gets back to even the band parades need to be tightened up. We need the timings of that. We for spectacle we need to. I mean, I go to band parades and the first 5 or 6 bands is not too bad, and then it's 100 yards, and then it's 200 yards, and and then somebody's arriving from the third parade of the day at 10 o'clock at night and expecting to walk you know, and these things will come back to us in the future as society normalizes. The policing budgets are being cut and stuff like that. The next thing, the responsibilities for that will be put on the organisers, same as it is the people who are running road races and everything else. We've been very, very lucky at this moment in time that costs have not been passed on to the organisations and band parades and stuff like that. Very lucky. But I mean, I don't know that that's going to last forever. And I think by taking a proactive approach, tightening the parades, acknowledging a time slot between 7:30 and 9:30 or 8 and 10 or whatever it is, and it will start then, and there will be no one on the road after 10 o'clock, and that's and everyone knows where they are, because I think some of those parades, people are thinking you could turn up at 9 o'clock, and that must cause the organisers a nightmare. We never organise a parade ourselves here, so we don't really know what the crack is, but I think that must be a nightmare, especially when you're dealing the next year with the local police or with the community, and you are marching past people's houses and children are sleeping, and the whole gambit. We do need to again self-examination on what we're doing and how we're doing it and how we can get better.
No,
I think collection parades have become too lazy a way for bands to make money, and we'll have a parade, and now all of a sudden we have 2 or 3 parades every Friday and Saturday that on the calendar, whereas in my early days in the 70s, we had going to a massive cancer parade in Garvan and stuff like that. Band parades weren't a thing. We used to go out ourselves during the week around the states and all and collect money, not bring a collective of bands. So I think and again, I know everybody needs money, but we've got to be a wee bit more proactive in that as well.
Yeah, no, I think there needs to be a creative element in regards to that, in terms of is there a possibility of, parades being able to combine and things like that, if there, there's proximities and stuff, there greater collaborations, and that might be heresy to some people to even hear that, but I think there is an element of trying to be creative around that, as you say. I mean, the amount of parades that take place, there's a hell of a lot that happens, throughout the course of the year. You just got to look at the calendars, you look at the likes of Lisa's calendar, already for 2024, the amount of parades already in is considerable. And I think, but that also comes down to, I think one of the things that bands are going to need to be mindful of there as well, I think you're maybe intimating at it there, Derek, is what we actually call these parades, because whenever policing costs and policing resources are being reduced, this idea of having to police an event, and I know we need to run these things like events, but it may get to the point where you end up having to call your parade a demonstration, because that would put you in the lane of, the right to assemble rather than the right to just organize a fundraising parade. And I think that's where, we also need to be mindful of the fact that, the state saying that they want to abdicate responsibility for policing things whenever, your right to assemble, your right to protest, your right to, to display your culture is supposedly built into the fabric of community, in terms of the state itself. I think it's, that causes, that's going to cause a major political issue in terms of, because I know there's been talk, we're going to end up having to pay for policing. And then you get the idea, well, listen, how can you pay for something that's supposed to be a right? In terms of, so what are we doing with that? So I think and that's another reason for us to come together, Derek, and talk, because these are the kind of things that we're going to have to navigate. And I don't know whether we're set up right to have those kind of conversations.
No, and but I do think that that the exposure, like your media praise stuff, and the many bands is watching it now, so we have a communication network here. Our thing about the hub idea, the centralized to that there, as part of that there would be like bands input, so they would have somewhere to communicate together, so that we get all the best information that we can. I think another document that we produced a few years back was a toolkit for bands. Now, it used to be on our website, but our website, the advanced one, was sort of defunct because websites are becoming a thing of the past. But we made a thing with toolkits for bands. An interesting thing around the collection parade. And there is rules in place there that every band's supposed to adhere to, and a lot of it's around the charities and stuff. And if you're collecting money, but yet expecting policing for free. You know, that you could be in a grey area there. But as I say, look again, Glenn, it's all about getting as much information as you can and communicating with
Yeah.
each other. You know, I do feel, I mean, and I've spent well, the last 10 years in this job, but you know, my big gripe is, you know, is the you know, trying to speak to the Ulster Scots Agency, the Art Council and all, you know, bands are treated as pariahs almost in these organizations. And it's the biggest musical, you know, genre in Europe and stuff like
Yeah.
that. You know, so my thing is that you know, we should get more help through the arts, but we need to work at that ourselves too.
Yeah.
You know, for me, if you get money, you must improve. You know, there must you know these organisations are not monitoring what they're giving money for. If there's improvements being made, my whole thing all my life and through the William King Band has been, you know, we started off like everyone, Sash and Derry Walls and whatever it is, you know, and progressed. And it's always been about progression. As you get older or whatever it is, you know, you want to play better and you want the quality to be there, and you know you want to. You want the overall product of the world. You say, look at these people.
Yeah.
It's incredible. What our thing in the world has what we have. You know, we're so lucky. But as I say, look, it's a long progression, and for us, it's always been. I mean, we funded the band for 40 years before we got a penny from anybody, you know, ourselves, you know, collection, whatever it is, stuff like that there, and self-funded. You know, and I think we should look at, you know, we should really look at that aspect of it again. You know, most people I deal with, you know, we need money. What do you need it for? I don't know. You know, that sort of way. You know, if you need it for a new set of flutes because your flutes are, you know, they're not great, they're 20, 25 years old, and bust a gut and get a hand and get that sorted. You need new drums, you need new uniforms, you know, you just don't need money just to get money, you know. And when you do get money, you use it for exactly what you want it for, you know, and look, it's all about that modernization of our whole product.
Yeah, no, and I think that's right. You know, I mean, so we're not getting the money, we're not getting the money. But if someone was to hand you the money, does your bond have a constitution? Does your bond have a bank account? Does your bond have all of the parameters that are required for a funding agency to actually give you the money? You know, and I think that's part and parcel of and a lot of bonds are in that place, but a lot of bonds aren't in that place as well, Derek. You know, and I think that's something we need to get our heads around too. And we're kind of, you know, veering off into right here, bonds, you need to do this, you need to do that, you know, kind of thing.
We're nearly like the Orange Order document again.
No, but I think but responsibility ways in regards to governing yourself, you know, in a more professional manner.
It's hard not to be enthusiastic about it when you can see it in your mind's eye, and you know, you think this would be much better, and you know, if we could all realize it. But I know it's my opinion, is not everybody's opinion, but you know, I really do feel that you know, and they encourage young people especially, and then you know, even ourselves here at the Mad, you know, a lot of parents, you know, we're reluctant to have their children get into the band. You know, we're working in the school system, we're teaching people to flute, not to be in bands, but if they want to come into the band, then we're happy to get them, and they're being taught properly from day one and stuff. And you know, that for me is showing progression. And as I say, you know, if the Orange Order is showing progression on the parading issue, then you know, they need to encourage everyone, and that needs to be a collaborative approach, because as I say, the parades are not about them or not about us, they're about all of us.
That's it, exactly. And that's it, and it affects so much more than just the people here at on parade. It's everybody who's there as well, you know, and the communities that you walk through, etc., are all impacted by this, you know. And we do ourselves a terrible, you know, disservice if we don't take all those kind of factors into consideration. And I think that is partly maybe the thought process behind that. But I think if somebody had to come out and said that rather than went away and created this document, I think the response would have been a heck of a lot different, you know, in terms of, you know, this is what we're really wanting to do, folks, because no one's going to have an issue with better organized parades, better communication, better discipline, better behavior, better briefings, and it's all done through the guise of health and safety. Well, it's a win-win.
It's a win-win, surely, and all that required was a 6-month or 8-month consultation period up front, the creation of some sort of thing that everyone agreed with and put it out there, and
Yeah.
who could argue the truth.
Exactly. Well, and anybody from the county that is maybe potentially watching this, it's not too late. You can definitely get some people together and have a conversation about this.
Yeah, and it's not too late. And as I say, we've gone through the process up here. I put myself out on open all the time. I'm more than happy to go to Belfast and discuss the way we did it. The governor, ex-governor of the Prentice Boys, Jim Brownlee, he was instrumental in the document and the wording and stuff like that too, as well. People like that, as I say, it's not about control. It's about it's about the product, and it's about what we're trying to do, and
Yeah.
that must be foremost in our minds. It's not about none of us can control anything.
Yeah.
The Orange Order parades will be nothing without the bands, and the bands,
Likewise.
would lose a huge chunk of their culture by not being on an Orange Order parade.
Yeah, no, and I get that. And one of the things that I talked to some bands about was, how many parades are doing a year with the Orange. And I know you were saying you guys only do about one, but there's some bands that are they're doing 8, 9, or 10. But they're not necessarily always doing it with the Belfast County. They're doing it with a variety of different lodges in different areas as well. So there is an imperative that that we get this right, because one of the things that potentially was saying, because the Belfast County were doing this, that there was going to be invites coming from other sort of areas to say, well, listen, we don't have that, come walk with us. We don't have this kind of stringent approach to the thing, come walk with us. And you could see where the attraction might be if the communication doesn't get cleared up, where bonds might go, well, you know what, for one parade a year, we might as well go and walk elsewhere.
But then, when we look at it that way, and maybe that's maybe where the lodges is coming from. Like that one day a year and the 2 days, a few days a year we have up here, is core to our existence in Northern Ireland. That's what a lot of our culture revolves around. The 12th of July, the Battle of Boyne, the siege in Derry here and stuff. So it's fundamental that we get those right, especially those 3 parades. That is our flagship events.
Yeah.
And everyone's responsible for making that work.
Yeah, but I think I know that terminology is key as well, Derek. It's flagship events. Flagship events takes us to a completely different, level. And I know the Orange do have what they call flagship or key events and stuff, but I don't know how well that's emphasized within, how that filters down into the rest of the community and stuff. But the idea of putting on something that's a flagship event means this has to be top notch from top to bottom. And again, I feel like a broken record here, what we're talking about, that requires the best from everybody who's going to be involved.
Yeah, exactly.
Brilliant. Listen, I know we've kind of touched on quite a lot there. We've talked a wee bit about how the agreement came. Talk to me a wee bit about briefly how you have updated that, because I know you started obviously the process with the main city accord, and you have went through a number of different reiterations of that, and then I know you had to update it recently as well.
Well, look, and that's straightforward. You put out some, and I think one of the other things on the end of the accord was debriefing. Debriefing between what goes well, what didn't go well, what could we improve on. So that's really, really important. That sort of debriefing and keeping it up to date. The actual kind of some bits that we added in were, might be a naivety, as you say yourself there. People under the influence of drink. But in the society we live in today, and it's becoming more and more prevalent with younger people, that can be drugs. We didn't look at that. And probably the groups that we're dealing with, we probably don't want that conversation out there. Could people be marching and praying under the influence of drugs? But let's face it, the society we live in is apparently rife in it. I'm too old to see it everywhere. Your work probably does it a lot more than me, but I do realize that it's there. So there was that element of it there. there's other things around, and the Orange Order thing touches on it about prescribed flags and stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
about the thing. So as I say, we had the incident here with the Clyde Valley band with with the Soldier F stuff. Now, I mean, okay, everybody has their own opinion and all that there, but to bring that to the flagship event of the Apprentice Boys in Derry is unsubtle, and look, what good do you get out of it, bar the negativity that surrounded the
Mm-hmm.
whole thing? So
Yeah.
we didn't win there. If they wanted, if anybody wants, as I said before, if anyone wants to vent their own opinions and stuff, they can do that on their own time.
Sure.
And that's straightforward, But as I say, bringing the dignity of Maid Parade's down. So we had things like that. So it's not only prescribed stuff; it's stuff that's not subtle,
Yeah.
So say if the Orange Order go out next week and the Orange Order are carrying Israeli flags, and that's taking sides on it, and something that's really nothing to do with it. As I
Yeah.
say, just that unsubtlety. Why bring problems on yourself? So we looked at some of the things on it, and there was very little change. And there's been issues around, people starting to walk on the parades more and stuff. And I thought it was a nationalist thing about parading here. I marched with other bands in the country, so I marched with Ballycohen and on Black Saturday up in wherever it was. Can't even remember where it was now, but Drumore maybe or somewhere like that there. But the amount of people watching the parade who were obviously drinking on the streets, walking through the bands as if it didn't matter. I'm
Mm-hmm.
thinking, speakers, what the, I'm arguing the toss here, thinking people are being provocative on a sectarian view, but yet, people have no respect for the parade even within their own community. So to say things like that. And the problem with that was, and we had discussions with the PSNI, who's responsible for that. And you know yourself as a flute player, Glenn, you're focused on something under your peripheral vision. It's a real startling effect. So
Yeah.
you could end up there, trying to usher someone out of the parade and stuff like that. You could end up there on the wrong side of the law. So what we were trying to do was saying, the police have overall responsibility for that. They should be dealing with that.
Yeah.
Anyone who's deliberately at that, just we think that we hadn't considered on the initial thing because it was a brand new document.
Sure.
So it's just a general progression of things, simplifying things, and maybe covering ourselves just slightly more. As the marshals started to get the cameras and all on them, it was about GDPR and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
you're looking at you're stepping into a whole realm. While it protects the marshals, it can also leave them open to other things.
Yeah.
So again, that needs a collective approach. I think, as I say, we still think we're in the 19th century where the world was different. We could do what we want. We controlled the whole country, and what we said goes. And I unfortunately think that in the 21st century, we don't seem to realise that we have a collective responsibility in Northern Ireland to make things work, and that also involves difficult conversations with people who maybe don't want us on the street. But those conversations have to be had, because the only way to deal with it is up front and face to face. Because if you step outside it, you're simply ignored.
Yeah.
I look at things like that there on a more pragmatic view than I did 10 years ago when I worked in the building trade. But I have had time to study it now, and I think the issue for a lot of people is, we don't really think about a bigger picture. We just think of our small things. So, as I say, the stuff around the cardinal was progression, and we hope. And the one thing about it is if anybody in this city, especially, tries to interfere with parading and stuff, or counter demonstrations and stuff like that, we have a proactive document there which states our point of view and what we're doing to address all the issues we feel. And that's hard to argue against if you're simply being negative for negative's sake.
Yeah, no, definitely, man. And I encourage anybody who hasn't read the Maiden City Accord to actually get a hold of it and read it. I just think in terms of even of the language, the way that things are worded, Derek, and stuff. It definitely seems it's a more friendly document than the one that the Orange have put out themselves. You know, I don't want to get this into an us versus them. That's not the point. I think for me, the idea is that is iron sharpens iron. You know, we all have something to contribute that would make us better. And I think, you know, even I'd written a different version of this, and I know I'd sent you a copy of my, you know, a different version, but it was still very much from the perspective of it was just to change the language to show, listen, this is how this could read a hell of a lot differently, and people's backs might not go up if it was just worded differently. But again, whenever I went back to the Maiden City Accord as well, I was like, all right, okay, the thing that's really missing here is the collaborative and the individual responsibility of each grouping, and that would have really made that a more sound document in terms of outlining. Here's what here's what we're going to do. Here's what we'd like for you guys to be able to do, and here's what our marshal's responsibility is. Here's the other things that are going to be taken into consideration for that and stuff as well, which would have made it a very much a case of we're all in this together rather than here, Bonds, buck your act up because you're the problem.
Yeah. Look, it's not us versus them, it's us versus them.
Yes.
You know, we all need to be in there.
Brilliant. I just want to give you an opportunity and on something really positive. In the next sort of week or so, there's a bit of an event happening up with you guys together, and music is taking place. Talk us a wee bit about that there. What's happening there, and why should people get along to that?
Well, look, it's Together in Music. It's actually one of the bands in the bands forum, a concert band, and they're actually a mixed band. They're a mixed religion band, and they were St Patrick's Church of Ireland Cathedral in Dublin's needing money, so they collaborated with two southern brass bands and created an event in St Patrick's Cathedral in Dublin to raise funds for restoration. That was subsidised slightly by the government and the Republic and stuff like that there. And so this, when they were there, they discussed. They found it interesting that that the people in Dublin bands didn't realise some of the issues that bands had up here around negativity and stuff like that. And what interested them, and they decided that they would have a reciprocal visit here to the city. And next Saturday night on the 4th of November, we're playing in the St Colum's Hall, which it's been refurbished at this moment in time. It's an old hall in the city here, not strictly somewhere that would have been used in recent times by the Protestant community in any way. It actually was called the People's Hall at the time. But I mean, it has a rich history. It is a fantastic venue, and it's been very accommodating towards the event. So that event will include the three bands that played in Dublin. William King will play a set in it. We're playing a set of Sousa marches. John Philip Sousa played in that hall in 1911 on his world tour. So we're playing a set of Sousa marches in recognition of that. The Soloist Highland Dancers from Brady Ulster Scots under Georgina Keane McCarter, they're recreating the thing you saw in the Apprentice Boys Hall during the Maiden City Festival, the Siege Dance, and that. So that event is open to. That's just trying to broaden the bands thing out to the whole community, So, and we have a lot of invited guests, and we've also deliberately invited at the Arts Council and people like that, the Ulster Scots Agency and stuff, and for discussions around how to get a look at bands in a different light, and what they really want to do, which is perform, and look at how you can help them and how you can fund that. And again, it's an opportunity to bring people from far away who might be looking at Northern Ireland in a different light. It's also an opportunity for us here to reiterate our own kind of what we do here and why we do it, and why we feel the status quo that we have now is the best for us and stuff. But it just opens that discussion up. We tend to be thinking simply on dealing with Northern Nationalists or Northern Republicans, where there are people in Ireland who are not Protestant, but they are receptive to to what they say, you know. And again, it's just a cross cultural event, and you know we think it'll be a fabulous a fabulous night, and a great way to promote what we all do. William King players will play in the finale and the final three pieces, which is Sweet Caroline and all for us Northern Ireland fans and stuff, Mixed March and Footprints on the Sand. So a pile of us will play with the main ensemble, which will be make it up to roughly 100 musicians on performance.
Brilliant. Well, listen, I'm sure there'll be details on the socials in regards to getting tickets and for that there. I'm looking forward to coming up and seeing it myself. I think I've got 2 tickets already, so all good. And really looking forward to seeing Solace doing that piece again, because it's unbelievable. So it's absolutely fantastic. But Derek, listen, I want to say thanks very much for coming on board and talking to me again. Really appreciate it. I really appreciate all the help that I get as well, and the friendship from the guys up in North Wales Cultural Partnership means a lot to me. So absolutely delighted to have you on again. I look forward to doing some stuff in the future as well. I know there's plans afoot for doing some things up there as well. So, well, thank you very much and enjoy your weekend.
No, that's brilliant, Glenn. And as I say again, you know, any help needed and any help on discussions, we're more than willing to be, you know, to be open arbitrators and help anybody that we can.
Brilliant. Happy days. Well, listen, man, thanks very much.